Now, I just realized that that probably didn't go over very well on Zoom. I had actually sent the link to your office administrator, and I apologize if the people on Zoom weren't able to hear it, but it is in the worship leader script if you want to post it in the chat. When I was in kindergarten, our teacher wanted to teach us about metamorphosis. She explained the life cycle of the butterfly, how it hatches from an egg to a little fuzzy caterpillar, which in turn it eats and eats until it gets nice and plump. Then it spins its silken cocoon, where it transforms into a butterfly. About a week later, the butterfly emerges, spreads its wings, and flies away gracefully. What she didn't explain, and what that lovely book we read today didn't explain, is how truly gruesome and transformational this process is. Our story begins with a hungry caterpillar who has just hatched from an egg. Soon enough, that little caterpillar, scientifically known as a larva, stuffs itself with leaves, growing little by little. When they've outgrown their current skin, a hormone, a steroid, is released, instructing the larva to molt. After it molts about 5 times, the larva stops feeding, hangs upside down from a twig or a leaf, and then either spins itself a silken cocoon or molts into a shiny chrysalis. A juvenile hormone acts to delay the metamorphosis through this whole larval stage. It works by blocking the genes in these imaginal discs, these tiny little disc-shaped bags of cells that kick into action when the caterpillar wraps itself into a chrysalis, and those eventually turn into an antenna, a wing, or other butterfly bit. Each cell is programmed to self-destruct through the activation of an enzyme called capaces. The capaces tear through the cell's proteins, releasing prime butterfly-making material. Once the caterpillar has imploded and disintegrated entirely all of its tissues, except for those little imaginal discs, those discs use the rich protein soup surrounding them to fuel rapid cell division required to form said wings, antennae, legs, eyes, genitals, and all the features of an adult butterfly or moth. Yeah, that's what I said. Metamorphosis isn't some beautiful or just some beautiful physical transformation, however. It is a stunning display of the evolutionary mechanism at work. Butterflies and caterpillars don't just look different. They behave differently too. One lives in a tree, the other flies. Most importantly, one eats leaves and the other solely feeds on nectar. There's plenty of room for both of these kinds of things to exist in the ecosystem since they don't interfere with each other's food stocks. It's brilliant. The butterfly is also a sacred symbol in a lot of cultures around the world. In Christianity, the butterfly symbolizes the soul upon death. In Chinese culture, it symbolizes conjugal or sexual bliss. To the Hopi people of the Native American Southwest, it represents hope, color, and resurrection. For transgender individuals, the butterfly is a powerful symbol of their rebirth as the gender that they were meant to be. Another common secular belief is that they symbolize spring and the changing of seasons. All these meanings are beautiful, and they do touch the mystic side of my soul deeply. For me, though, these remarkable creatures have appeared at especially important times in my life. Anytime that I was preparing to experience a change in my life that would upend or reinvent me, the butterfly was there. Sometimes it was only the caterpillar that I saw, and it was a reminder to me that change was inevitable, and embracing it was the only way for me to grow into a more spiritually rounded human being. And trust me, there wasn't times where I ignored it, and I stagnated. I'm sure you felt that. When I was younger, butterflies symbolized my struggle as a queer youth, unable to express himself in the manner that I wanted to without shame or repercussion. Caterpillars were important to me because the average person saw them as ugly. I saw them as me, someone still growing and changing, but when it got to spread its wings, it would eventually change the world, something I still hope to do. When I discovered my ex-wife was pregnant with my son, I saw a butterfly kaleidoscope, or swarm, and it reminded me of the busyness that I would soon experience, the fragility of new life, and my now transformation from not just a man, but a father. I saw butterflies on my second wedding day in the garden of the church in Anaheim as I was setting up, and I saw them during the memorial services of both my daughter and my grandmother. So yes, I can see the rich and deeply meaningful symbolism of the butterfly and its metamorphosis. A form of self-care that I practice is called cocooning. A lot of neurodivergent people do this. I happen to be one of them. When I'm feeling incredibly stagnant, anxious, or scared, I roll myself up in my favorite blanket and I listen to some soothing music. When my anxiety or stress has passed and I feel like I can breathe again, I unravel myself from my cocoon and I start all over. Granted, that transformation isn't as gruesome or as shocking as that of a butterfly. I'm not turning into soup. But I have developed it into a healthy coping mechanism. I also use it when my mind is stuck, when I need to recharge my creativity, like when I'm writing poetry. My best costume designs and sermons have come out of this practice. A story I want to share with you is called The Lessons of the Butterfly by Paulo Coelho. I believe he might be Brazilian. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. A man spent hours watching a butterfly struggling to emerge from its cocoon. It managed to make a small hole, but its body was too large to get through it. After a long struggle, it appeared to be exhausted and it remained absolutely still. The man decided to help the butterfly, and with a pair of scissors, he cut open the cocoon, thus releasing it. However, the butterfly's body was still very small and wrinkled, and its wings were all crumpled. The man continued to watch, hoping that at any moment the butterfly would open up its wings and fly. Nothing happened. In fact, that butterfly spent the rest of its brief life dragging around its shrunken body and shriveled wings, incapable of flight. When the man, out of kindness and his eagerness to help, had failed to understand, was that tight cocoon and the efforts that the butterfly had to make in order to squeeze itself out of that tiny hole were nature's way of training the butterfly and strengthening its wings. Sometimes a little extra effort is precisely what prepares us for the next obstacle to be faced. Anyone who refuses to make that effort or gets the wrong sort of help is left unprepared to fight the next battle and never manages to fly off to their destiny. So, what can we learn from the butterfly? First, the act of metamorphosis is gruesome, messy, and it's important. Change is inevitable. The only constant in the universe is change. That's what Heraclitus said. Change and changing is hard, and it can be taxing to the soul, the mind, the body, and all of the above. However, the struggle is made sweeter by the results of that transformation. Also, by helping someone too much and enabling them, you're not allowing them to learn and grow, such as the story where the man attempted to help the butterfly out of the cocoon by cutting it open. Secondly, life is fleeting. The average lifespan of a butterfly is only about 2 weeks. Some live as little of as a day, while the longest lives a year, and that's the monarch, I believe. Yep. I've heard it said that we should live each day as if it's our last. I see wisdom in that sentiment. It's a bit nihilistic for me. So I see it as that we must make most of the time that we do have. Lastly, and possibly the most important part of this lesson, is that we must appreciate the simple beauty that life has to offer us, especially in the gorgeous wings of a butterfly. Spoiler alert, and no apologies if you haven't seen this film. It's been out for a while. In Encanto, I realized that there were a lot of layers going on in when the character of Abuela says, "I've never been able to come back here," in that scene where they were just by the river, to her granddaughter Mirabel. On one hand, it sounds like she's never been able to emotionally get back there to face her grief. But on the other hand, she's also never been able to physically get there because the mountains grew in their place. The mountains were protection for the family in time of danger, but they also represented a block in Abuela's memory. When Mirabel caused that mountain to crack, she was not only breaking down their no longer needed wall of protection, she was also breaking down Abuela's internal walls to allow her to face her own path and start to heal. like breaking the walls of the chrysalis in the song. Our country right now is in a cocoon. It's swimming in butterfly soup. I'm curious what we will look like when we all emerge. Will we still have our desire for justice and democracy? Will we surrender our lives to the altar of capitalism, ignoring that this system is hurting others and thus inflating the flattening curve of growth and progress, cutting open our cocoon too early and therefore withering and dying because we aren't ready? What will the world look like as a whole when it emerges from this cocoon? Will we have peace? The Council of Foreign Relations confirms that besides Russia's involvement in sovereign Ukraine and the current conflict between Hamas and the State of Israel, there are 26 other armed conflicts in the world at this moment. Will we continue to have war? The only constant in the universe is change. Right now, we're in an unprecedented time. We are very much post-quarantine, and I'm sure that there's an incredible amount of stress, anxiety, depression, and maybe even loneliness because of it with all of you. I encourage you to use this as a time of renewal. News reports are way too conflicting, especially those coming from our national leaders. They're giving voices to people that don't necessarily need it. I urge you to only read what is absolutely necessary, fair, balanced, researched reporting from reputable sources. Imagine that your home is your cocoon, and at this moment, you're just swimming in the butterfly soup, ready to be reborn into something new, something different, something you were not before this process started. Whatever the outcome, we will emerge from this chrysalis a new country for better or for worse. And as Unitarian Universalists, I hope that our first act is one of love, out of resilience. We are a strong moral people, and we must maintain that no matter what, we will not change our mission. We will continue to embrace the spirit of the 8 principles, the new Article 2, I call it JETPIG, I think that's an adorable acronym for such things, and we will strongly stand against any violation against them. I would hope that we would rediscover that we have wings and that they are grand and beautiful and that we can fly, hopefully spreading our message of inclusivity around the world. In the meantime, if you need to cocoon yourself and shut out the world in order to renew, do it. It's self-care. You need it. Watch Netflix, stream some movies, listen to soothing music, read some poetry like I do. If you need to remain cognizant, please have at. If you need to sing, dance, make art, do it. Do it for yourself and the health of your soul. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, "So shall we come to look at the world with new eyes." We will come to look at the world with new eyes because it will be a far different world than what we are used to. And it is up to us to make sure that it is better, safer, and more welcoming. It will also add to the kaleidoscope of beauty that is this life, this world, and this faith. May it be so.